The city of Neo Celestia was always full of sound. Hover cars glided between tall crystal towers, bright lights shimmered across the skyline, and voices of many species blended into one great chorus. It was a city where humans, aliens, and machines lived side by side. Yet inside a small apartment on the 23rd floor, all that noise faded into the background. What mattered there was the sound of a child's laughter, or on this day her sudden tears. Lyra moved quickly across the room. She was not human. Her skin shone in soft violet shades, and her crystal-like wings folded neatly against her back. She was a single mother, raising her daughter Zyla in this vast city. Life was not easy for her, but she worked hard and gave everything she could for her little girl. Zyla was the center of her world. That morning had started peacefully. Zyla was sitting on the floor with her favorite toy, a small robotic creature shaped like a round ball with tiny arms. The toy would blink its glowing eyes, make soft musical chimes, and roll around in funny little circles. It was not just a toy to Zyla. It was her friend, her comfort, and the one thing that made her smile on the lonely evenings when her mother had to work late. "Look, Mama, he's dancing again." Zyla giggled as the toy spun in place, beeping a cheerful melody. Lyra smiled, her heart warming at the sound. "Yes, Zyla, he is always ready to dance for you." But then the accident happened. Lyra was cleaning the room, her hands moving quickly as she tried to organize clothes, dishes, and work papers. She was tired after her long shift at the factory, but she still wanted to make the apartment neat for her daughter. In her rush, she stepped too close to where Zyla was playing. Her foot brushed against the toy, sending it tumbling across the floor. It hit the edge of the table with a sharp crack. "No!" Zyla shouted, rushing after it. The toy landed on its side. Its glowing eyes flickered. The soft musical chime turned into a broken, distorted buzz. Then it went silent. Its tiny arms froze in place. For a moment, the room was still. Then Zyla's face crumpled, and she began to cry. Lyra froze, her chest tightening. She picked up the toy and turned it in her hands. A crack ran along its smooth surface, and the inside made a faint rattling noise as if small parts had broken loose. She tapped the side gently, hoping it would start again. But it remained dark and lifeless. "I'm so sorry, Zyla," Lyra whispered. Her voice trembled. "I didn't mean to—" "You broke him," Zyla cried, her tears falling fast. "He's gone." The sound of her daughter's sobs pierced through Lyra like a blade. She pulled Zyla into her arms, rocking her gently. "No, no, my star, he is not gone. We will fix him, I promise." But even as she said the words, doubt filled her. Later, when Zyla had finally fallen asleep on the couch, Lyra sat at the small table with the broken toy in front of her. She stared at it, guilt heavy in her chest. It wasn't just a toy. It was the one gift she had been able to give Zyla that made her truly happy. She had saved credits for months to buy it, working overtime shifts and skipping meals just so she could afford it on Zyla's birthday. And now, because of one careless step, it was broken. Lyra's hands shook as she tried to open the toy, but the circuits inside were unlike anything she understood. Tiny wires glimmered, half of them snapped. The memory crystal that stored its little personality was cracked. It looked hopeless. "How will I fix this?" she whispered to herself. "The repair shops will charge too much. I barely have enough for rent this month." Tears welled in her eyes. She pressed her hands over her face, feeling exhaustion and despair wash over her. For all her efforts, for all her hard work, she had failed her daughter in such a simple way. The next morning, Zyla woke up and ran to the table. "Mama, is he fixed?" she asked, with hope shining in her young eyes. Lyra's heart broke again. She forced a smile. "Not yet, my love, but I will find someone who can fix him. I promise you." Zyla hugged her and whispered, "Please don't let him be gone forever." That day, after taking Zyla to school, Lyra carried the broken toy in a cloth bag and walked through the busy streets of Neo Celestia. She stopped at repair shops, but everywhere she went, the answer was the same. "This is delicate alien tech. Repairs will cost more than 100 credits. Memory crystal is cracked. Forget it, cheaper to buy a new one. Sorry, lady, can't help you. Each refusal cut deeper into her hope. By the time the sun dipped low behind the crystal towers, Lyra's feet ached and her wings drooped with weariness. She stood in the middle of the marketplace, clutching the broken toy, her eyes filling with tears once more. Maybe they're right, she whispered to herself. Maybe it cannot be saved. But then she overheard a conversation between two vendors. Have you heard of that human mechanic on the lower levels? The one who can fix anything? One said. Ah, yes. Ethan, I think his name is. Strange fellow, but skilled. They say he repaired a Corthian engine with nothing but scrap parts. Lyra's heart stirred. A human mechanic? Humans were known for being stubborn, for trying impossible things, for solving problems in unusual ways. She had never trusted humans much. They were newcomers to the galaxy, often loud and brash. But in that moment she felt a spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this human could help. She looked down at the broken toy in her hands, then lifted her chin. For Xyla's sake, she would try. She would find this Ethan. And so, with tired steps but a small light of determination in her heart, Lyra turned toward the lower levels of the city. The search for help had just begun. The lower levels of Neo Celestia were very different from the bright upper towers. Here the streets were narrow, crowded, and filled with the smell of oil, metal, and food stalls. Neon lights flickered above cracked stone paths, and machines hummed from hidden corners. It was not a place many would visit unless they had to. But Lyra was determined. She walked slowly, holding the small cloth bag close to her chest. Inside was the broken toy that had once brought so much joy to her. Daughter. She thought of Xyla's tearful eyes, her small voice begging, "Please don't let him be gone forever." Those words kept her moving even as her wings drooped with fatigue. She asked for directions at a vendor's stall. The man raised an eyebrow when she spoke of a human mechanic. "You must mean Ethan," he said. "Strange one, that human. Works in an old workshop by the power lines. Doesn't care much about credits, some say he just likes fixing things." Lyra thanked him politely and followed the path he described. The streets grew quieter as she walked. Soon she found herself standing before a workshop that looked out of place among the tall steel buildings. It was small, with a wooden sign above, the door that simply read, "Ethan's Repairs." Tools, gears, and scrap parts were scattered in front. The faint sound of humming music drifted from inside. Lyra hesitated. She had never asked a human for help before. Many aliens in the city considered humans too reckless. Yet something in her heart whispered that this was worth the risk. She pushed the door open. The inside of the workshop was unlike anything she had expected. It was messy, yes, but not in a dirty way. Machines of all shapes and sizes stood on shelves and tables. A starship engine sat in one corner, glowing faintly. A broken translator bot lay half open on another table. And above it all, wires and lights crisscrossed the ceiling like vines in a garden. At the center of this chaos stood a man. He was tall, with short brown hair, sleeves rolled up to his elbows, and grease smudged across his hands. He wore a wide grin as he bent over a floating drone, tightening a screw while humming to himself. When the door creaked, he looked up, his blue eyes lit with curiosity. "Well now," he said, setting his tool down. "That's a face I haven't seen before. Welcome to my little workshop. Name's Ethan. What brings you here?" Lyra shifted nervously, clutching the bag. I need help," she said softly. "Something important to my daughter is broken." Ethan wiped his hands on a cloth and leaned forward. "Ah, a challenge. My favorite kind of day. Let's see what you've got." Lyra carefully placed the toy on his work table. Ethan's eyes widened slightly. Alien make. Corthian circuits, if I'm not mistaken. And oh, that's a lovely memory crystal, though it looks cracked. He tapped the toy gently. "So this is the little fellow who needs saving?" Lyra nodded. Her voice trembled. "It was my daughter's birthday gift. She loves it more than anything. I broke it by mistake." For a moment, Ethan studied her, His smile softened. Don't worry, I'll do my best. I can't promise miracles, but I've been known to fix things others call impossible. Ethan began examining the toy. He used strange human tools. Small, lights, magnifiers, and something that looked like a pen but glowed with soft energy. His hands moved quickly, but his eyes stayed focused. This one's tricky, he said. The circuits are delicate and the crystal is damaged. Most shops would tell you to throw it away and buy a new one, but that's not how I work. Lyra tilted her head. Why? Ethan chuckled. Because everything deserves a second chance. Machines, toys, even people. His words surprised her. Most mechanics cared only about credits, yet here was a human who seemed to care about something more. As Ethan worked, sparks flickered from the circuits. He frowned, muttering to himself, then quickly adjusted a wire. Lyra watched nervously, afraid the toy might be damaged further. You seem worried, Ethan said, glancing at her. It is very precious, Lyra whispered. If it cannot be fixed, my daughter's heart will break. Ethan nodded. Then, we'll just have to fix it, won't we? The hours passed slowly. Ethan worked with steady patience. Sometimes he stopped to scratch his head, then suddenly tried something new that Lyra had never seen before. He combined human tools with pieces of alien scrap lying around the workshop. He even used a bit of metal from a broken starship engine to stabilize the toy's cracked surface. At one point, sparks shot across the table and Lyra gasped, covering her mouth. Ethan only laughed. Don't worry, that's just part of the fun. If it doesn't spark, it's not really alive. Lyra shook her head, half shocked and half amused. Humans truly were strange. Yet as she watched him work, a small hope began to grow inside her. During a quiet moment, Ethan asked, So tell me about your daughter. Lyra's face softened. Her name is Zyla. She is young, full of laughter, and she is all I have. I raise her alone. It is not easy in this city. Sometimes I worry I cannot give her enough. Ethan's hands slowed for a moment and his expression grew thoughtful. Raising a child alone? That takes strength. You're already giving her more than you realize. She's lucky to have you. Lyra felt warmth in her chest at his words. She had never heard anyone speak like that before. By the time evening light glowed through the workshop windows, Ethan leaned back with a satisfied grin. Well, he said, stretching his arms, I think I've got most of it working again. The circuits are repaired, the crystal is tricky, but I managed to stabilize it. The real test will be when we power it up. Lyra's wings twitched with nervousness. She held her breath as Ethan reached for the switch. The toy blinked once, its tiny eyes flickering with weak light. A faint chime played, broken and uneven, before it went silent again. Lyra's heart sank. It did not work, but Ethan only smiled wider. Not yet. Sometimes you need patience. Tomorrow I'll try a different method. Trust me, we're not done. Lyra stared at him, surprised. He wasn't giving up. Every other shop had turned her away, but this human refused to stop trying. For the first time since the accident, she felt real hope. That night, as Lyra left the workshop with the toy still in Ethan's care, she looked up at the glowing towers of Neo Celestia. The city no longer seemed as cold as before. She whispered softly to herself, Maybe humans are not as strange as I thought. Maybe they are exactly what we need. And somewhere deep inside, she knew. Her daughter's toy was not the only thing being repaired. Something in her heart was beginning to heal as well. The next morning, Lyra returned to Ethan's workshop with cautious hope. The streets of the lower levels were already alive with the sound of vendors, engines, and machines. Yet as she walked, she noticed something different in herself. Yesterday she had felt lost, but today she carried a spark of trust. When she reached the little shop with the sign Ethan's Repairs, the door was already open. The smell of oil and hot metal drifted out. Inside, Ethan was hard at work. His hair was messy, his hands were blackened with grease, but his smile was wide as always. Ah, there you are, he said when he saw her. I was just about to start round 2 with your little fellow here. On the table lay Zyla's broken toy, now with several wires neatly replaced and its cracked shell patched with a thin silver plate. It still looked fragile, but better than before. "Good morning," Lyra said softly, her wings folding close to her back. "Did you make progress?" Ethan rubbed his chin. "Some. But the real challenge is the memory crystal. Without it, the toy won't just dance or sing, it won't remember your daughter at all, it'll be empty, like a new machine." Lyra's heart sank. Zyla loved the toy because of its little quirks, the way it sometimes spun too much or hummed softly when she fell asleep. "It must remember her," she whispered. Ethan nodded. "Then we'll do everything we can." The repair began. Ethan laid out his tools. Tiny pliers, glowing pens, coils of silver wire, and even a strange device that hummed like a heartbeat. Lyra stood nearby, holding her hands tightly together as she watched. "Careful," Ethan muttered, lowering a lens over his eye. He gently lifted the cracked crystal from its socket. It shimmered faintly, glowing with broken light. "See this? This crystal is where all the toy's memories live. But it's cracked and its energy is leaking." He connected it to a small reader. Strange symbols flickered on a screen. Some were complete, others broken. "Looks like the songs and movements are damaged. If I can't stabilize it, the toy may forget everything." Lyra leaned forward, worry filling her voice. "Can you fix it?" Ethan smiled. "I don't give up that easily." The first attempt failed. Ethan tried to weld the crystal with a micro laser, but the crack spread wider. Sparks jumped and the toy gave a weak buzzing sound before going silent again. Lyra gasped. "Relax," Ethan said quickly. "This is normal. Fixing something broken isn't a straight path. It takes patience." Lyra shook her head, amazed. "Every other shop said it was hopeless. You act as if failure does not matter." Ethan chuckled. "Failure's just another step toward success. Humans are stubborn that way." Hours passed. Lyra watched as Ethan tried one method after another. He coated the crystal in a thin layer of melted alloy, hoping to seal the crack. He rerouted energy through substitute wires. He even placed the crystal inside a strange human device that pulsed with light, something Lyra had never seen before. At times, the toy flickered to life, its eyes glowing faintly, a few notes of its chime playing, before shutting down again. Each time Lyra's heart rose and fell, she whispered a small prayer to the stars. "Please let it live again." For Zyla. In the middle of the work, a sudden power surge struck the workshop. The lights flickered, machines whined, and smoke curled from one of the walls. Ethan cursed under his breath and leapt to shut down the breakers. "What happened?" Lyra asked, alarmed. "City grid's unstable down here," Ethan explained, waving the smoke away. "Happens all the time. Nearly fried your toy, though." He checked the little machine again. Thankfully, it was safe, though its lights dimmed. Further, Lyra covered her mouth. "If it had been destroyed." "But it wasn't," Ethan interrupted gently. He gave her a reassuring smile. "You see? Still breathing, still fighting. Just like us." For the first time, Lyra laughed softly at his strange human words. As evening approached, Ethan finally leaned back with a sigh. "All right, we've made progress, but not enough. The toy's circuits are repaired. The memory crystal is stable, but fragile. It can't last forever like this. If I can find a proper replacement shard, I can transfer the memories safely." "Where will you find one?" Lyra asked. "There's a junkyard 2 sectors away," Ethan replied. "I've seen crystals there before. They're usually broken, but with some luck, I might find one strong enough to patch this." Lyra bit her lip. "And if not?" Ethan gave her a steady look. "Then we keep trying." For a while, silence filled the workshop. Lyra sat on a stool, watching the toy's tiny eyes blink weakly as if it were trying to wake up. She thought of Zyla waiting at home, her small hands clutching her blanket and asking if her friend would come back. Ethan finally broke the silence. "You know, I can see how much you love your daughter. You remind me of my own mother. She used to work hard, fixing everything herself even when she didn't have enough. She always said, "A parent's strength isn't about what they can afford. It's about never giving up." Lyra's eyes softened. She must have been very strong. She was, Ethan said with a smile. And you are too. The words touched Lyra deeply. She had always carried the burden of raising Zyla alone, always fearing she wasn't enough. Yet here was a human stranger, seeing her strength where she only saw weakness. For the first time, she felt lighter. When the sun finally dipped low, Ethan carefully packed the toy into a small protective case. "Take this home," he said. "It's not ready yet, but I've given it temporary energy. It won't work fully, but your daughter can still hold it and feel its warmth. Tomorrow, I'll search for the replacement shard." Lyra held the case close. "Thank you, truly." Ethan gave her a playful grin. "Don't thank me yet. Wait until the little guy's dancing again." That night, when Lyra returned home, Zyla ran to her with wide eyes. "Mama, is he fixed?" Lyra knelt and opened the case. The toy blinked, weakly, its tiny arms twitching. It gave a faint, broken chime, but it was alive. Zyla gasped with joy, hugging it tightly. "He's not gone. He's still here." Tears filled Lyra's eyes as she held her daughter. The toy was not fully healed, but the hope in Zyla's face was worth more than anything. As she tucked her daughter into bed, Lyra whispered, "We are not alone, my star. Someone is helping us. A human." And in that quiet moment, she knew the journey was far from over. The real challenge had only begun. The morning sun cast a soft glow across the city of Neo Celestia, but inside Lyra's small apartment, the real light came from the smile on Zyla's face. The little girl sat on the floor, holding her toy close. Its tiny eyes blinked weakly, and its chime was faint and broken, but it was enough. "He's still here, Mama," Zyla whispered. "He didn't leave me." Lyra's chest tightened with both relief and worry. The toy was not fully repaired. It was like a candle struggling to stay lit in the wind. Yet Ethan's promise had given her daughter hope, and hope was something she had almost forgotten to believe in herself. That day, after Zyla went to school, Lyra returned to Ethan's workshop. She found him surrounded by wires, tools, and scraps, his hair sticking out in all directions. He looked tired but cheerful. "Morning, Lyra," he greeted with a grin. "I was just about to head to the junkyard. Care to join me?" She tilted her head. "Would it help if I came?" Ethan shrugged. "Well, I don't mind company. And, who knows? You might spot something I'd overlook. 4 eyes are better than 2. Her crystal wings shimmered faintly as she nodded. "Then I will come." The junkyard was located on the outskirts of Neo Celestia. It was a vast field of discarded machines, broken ships, and shattered parts. Towers of scrap metal rose into the sky like strange mountains, and the air smelled of rust and smoke. "This is where most people see garbage," Ethan said, climbing over a pile of metal. "But I see possibilities. Sometimes the best treasures are hidden in places like this." Lyra followed carefully, her wings folded tight to avoid sharp edges. She carried the small case with the toy inside, not wanting to leave it behind. They searched for hours. Ethan dug through boxes of broken crystals, holding each one up to the light before tossing it aside. Lyra examined the ground carefully, her violet hands brushing through piles of discarded tech. Finally, she spotted something half buried under a rusted panel. It was a shard of crystal, glowing faintly with soft blue light. She picked it up and called out, "Ethan, this one does it work?" Ethan hurried over. He examined it closely, his eyes shining. "Well, I'll be. That's a beauty. Not perfect, but strong enough to hold a memory transfer. Nice work, Lyra." Her wings lifted slightly in pride. "So it can save my daughter's toy." "With some luck and skill, yes," Ethan replied. "Let's get back and see what we can do." Back at the workshop, Ethan placed both crystals on the table, the cracked one from Zyla's toy and the new shard they had found. He set up a transfer device, connecting wires carefully. "This is delicate," he explained. "If I do it wrong, the memories could scatter." The toy might wake up, but it won't be the same. It won't remember your daughter. Lyra's hands tightened around the edge of the table. You must succeed. She needs it to be the same. Ethan gave her a calm smile. Then I'll succeed. The process began. Sparks of light danced between the two crystals as the device hummed. Strange symbols flickered across Ethan's screen. Data streams, fragments of songs, pieces of movement, patterns. At first, everything went smoothly. Bits of memory flowed into the new shard like water filling a cup. But then the device beeped sharply, and the flow stuttered. The screen flashed red. What happened? Lyra asked, panic rising in her voice. Some of the data is corrupted, Ethan muttered, adjusting the controls. If I push too hard, the memories could shatter completely. Then stop, he shook his head. No, we just need another way. He leaned back, thinking hard. Then he snapped his fingers. Of course. We'll use a human method. Manual. Coding. Slow, but steady. Lyra frowned. Manual. What? Ethan grinned. Think of it like stitching a torn cloth. Piece by piece, thread by thread. It takes patience, but it holds together better in the end. The hours that followed were long. Ethan worked carefully, typing commands, repairing fragments, and guiding the flow of memory bit by bit. Lyra sat beside him, sometimes handing him tools, sometimes just watching silently. At one point, he asked her, Tell me more about Zyla. What does she love most about this toy? Lyra thought for a moment. She loves when it sings to her, at night. The song is soft, like a lullaby. She says it feels like having a friend who never leaves. Ethan nodded. Then that memory is important. Let's make sure it transfers cleanly. Lyra's eyes softened. You speak as if memories are alive, aren't they? Ethan replied. Memories are what make us who we are. Same goes for machines, if they've learned to be more than circuits. Slowly, the transfer neared completion. The new shard glowed brightly, filled with data. The old cracked crystal flickered weakly, its energy fading. Finally, Ethan disconnected the device and held up the new shard. There, he said with pride. We did it. Now let's see if it works. He placed the shard inside the toy, closed its shell, and pressed the power switch. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the toy's eyes lit up with soft golden light. It spun in a small circle and gave a cheerful chime. Lyra gasped. It is alive again. But the true test came when the toy looked up at her, blinked, and softly hummed the lullaby Zyla loved so much. Tears filled Lyra's eyes. It remembers. Ethan leaned back, smiling. Told you. Sometimes you just need patience and hope. That evening, Lyra brought the toy home. Zyla was waiting by the door, her small hands clutching her blanket. When she saw the toy blink and chime, she cried out with joy and hugged it tightly. He's back. Mama, he's really back. Lyra knelt and wrapped her daughter in her arms. Yes, my star. He remembers you. Zyla looked up at her with shining eyes. Thank you, Mama. Thank you for not giving up. Lyra kissed her forehead. We had help. A human helped us. Zyla tilted her head. A human? Yes. Lyra said softly. A human with clever hands and a kind heart. That night, after Zyla fell asleep with the toy singing softly beside her, Lyra stood by the window, looking out at the glowing city. For so long, she had carried her burdens alone. She had believed she had to be strong without help. But now, she understood something new. Strength was not just about carrying everything alone. It was also about trusting others, about hope, about believing that kindness could come from unexpected places. And she realized Ethan had not only repaired the toy, he had repaired something inside her heart as well. For the first time in many years, Lyra felt truly hopeful. The days after the toy's repair felt brighter for both Lyra and her daughter. Zyla carried her little companion everywhere, its golden eyes blinking happily, its chimes ringing soft and cheerful. Each time it spun in a funny circle or hummed, its gentle lullaby, Zyla's laughter filled their small apartment. For Lyra, That sound was like sunlight after a long storm. She worked her shifts at the factory with renewed energy, knowing that her daughter's happiness was safe again. Yet deep inside, she also carried gratitude for the human who had made it possible, Ethan. Every time she thought of his messy hair, his grease-stained hands, and his easy smile, a warmth stirred in her chest. He had not only repaired the toy, he had given her back something she thought she had lost: hope. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the towers of Neo Celestia, Lyra decided to visit Ethan again. She carried a small basket of food, simple bread, fruit, and a sweet drink she had made from her people's recipes. She told herself it was just a thank you gesture, but part of her knew it was more. When she entered the workshop, she found Ethan bent over a large engine, muttering to himself as sparks danced from his tools. "Careful," she said softly. He looked up, startled, then grinned. "Ah, Lyra. Didn't hear you come in. Don't worry. I've been shocked so many times I think I'm immune now." She shook her head at his strange humor but smiled. "I brought something for you. A small gift." Ethan's eyes widened when he saw the basket. "For me? You didn't have to—" "It is a way of showing thanks," she interrupted gently. "In my culture, we share food with those who help us." Ethan's smile softened. "Then I'm honored." They sat together at a small table in the corner of the workshop, eating and talking. Lyra told stories of her childhood on her homeworld, of crystal forests that glowed under starlight. Ethan listened with fascination, asking questions, laughing at her descriptions of creatures he couldn't imagine. In return, Ethan shared tales of Earth, of wide oceans, forests of green, and skies filled with birds. Lyra listened with wonder. She had never thought of humans as storytellers, yet his words painted pictures so vivid she could almost see them. For a while, the burdens of life faded. They were simply two people from different worlds, sharing food, stories, and laughter. But peace never lasts forever. The next morning, trouble came. When Lyra arrived at work, she found her co-workers gathered in worry. The factory's main machine, a massive press that shaped metal for starship parts, had broken down. Sparks had flown, gears had jammed, and now the entire line was halted. Without repairs, dozens of workers would lose pay, and for some, that meant not being able to afford food or rent. The factory owner paced back and forth, shouting at mechanics who shook their heads helplessly. "We cannot fix it, the system is too damaged," one of them said. Lyra's heart tightened. If the factory closed even for a few days, she would struggle to care for Zyla. She thought quickly, and one name came to her mind: Ethan. That evening, she hurried to his workshop. "Ethan, I need your help," she said, her voice urgent. He put down his tools immediately. "What's wrong?" She explained about the factory, about the broken machine, about the danger of lost jobs and hungry families. Ethan's eyes lit with determination. "Then we fix it," he said simply. The next day, Ethan arrived at the factory with Lyra. The workers looked at him with doubt. Whispers passed among them. "A human? What can he do?" "They say humans are reckless. He'll only make it worse." But Ethan ignored them. He walked straight to the giant press, examining it closely. Sparks still flickered from broken wires, and a deep grinding sound echoed from within. "Big machine," he muttered. "But nothing's impossible." Lyra stood beside him, her wings folding tightly. She could feel the eyes of everyone on her. Doubt hung in the air like a heavy cloud. If Ethan failed, she would be blamed for bringing him here. Ethan climbed onto the machine, opening panels, pulling out tools. He worked quickly, his hands moving with confidence. Lyra watched, her heart pounding. At first, nothing changed. Sparks flew, and the machine groaned. Some workers shook their heads. "Hopeless," one whispered. But Ethan kept working. He patched wires with scrap, realigned gears with careful strikes, and even used his strange human device that glowed with blue energy. He seemed to speak to the machine, muttering encouragement as if it could hear him. Finally, after hours of labor, he jumped down and shouted, "All right, give it power." The factory owner hesitated, then nodded. Energy surged into the press. At first it rattled violently as if ready to collapse. Gasps filled the room. Lyra held her breath. Then slowly, the machine steadied. Its gears turned smoothly, its lights glowed steady, and the great press slammed down with perfect rhythm. The factory roared to life once more. Cheers erupted. Workers clapped and shouted in relief. The owner, though reluctant, muttered, "Well, done." Lyra turned to Ethan, her eyes shining. "You did it." He wiped sweat from his forehead and grinned. "Told you. Nothing's impossible." That night, as they walked back through the city streets, Lyra felt something new inside her heart. She had always believed she was alone in her struggles, that no one would stand beside her. But Ethan had proven otherwise. "You have given more than help," she said quietly. "You gave hope, not just to me, but to everyone at the factory." Ethan shrugged. "Hope's free. Might as well share it." Lyra looked at him, studying his tired but cheerful face. For the first time, she wondered if this human had entered her life for more than just a broken toy. Later, when she returned home, Zyla ran into her arms. "Mama, how was your day?" Lyra hugged her tightly. "It was hard, my star, but a friend helped us again." "Was it the human?" Zyla asked with wide eyes. "Yes," Lyra said softly. "The human." As she tucked Zyla into bed, she thought of Ethan's words, his stubborn smile, his way of refusing to give up even when everything seemed broken. The toy blinked and hummed softly beside her daughter. Lyra watched them both, and she realized the true repair was not only of machines, it was of hearts, of trust, of the belief that even in a vast city of strangers, kindness could bring people together. And though she didn't say it aloud, she knew this was the turning point. Life would never be the same again. The city of Neo Celestia buzzed with life as always, but for Lyra, the rhythm of her days began to feel different. The fear that had once pressed against her chest now softened, replaced by something warmer. Her daughter laughed more, her work was steadier, and she no longer felt so invisible among the crowds. And the reason for this change was clear. Ethan. The human mechanic had stepped into her life like a sudden beam of light in a dim room. At first, it was only about fixing a toy. Then it became about saving her workplace. But now, as days turned into weeks, she realized it was also about something far deeper, a connection. One afternoon, Zyla tugged on her mother's sleeve. "Mama, can we go see Ethan, please? I want to show him the picture I drew." Lyra smiled gently. Her daughter had spoken of Ethan almost every day. The mechanic had become a hero in Zyla's eyes, and truthfully, in Lyra's heart as well. "Very well," she said. "Let's visit him." When they arrived at the workshop, they found Ethan tinkering with a small flying drone. He looked up as the bell over the door rang and his face lit up. "Lyra, Zyla, perfect timing, watch this." He tossed the drone into the air and it buzzed around the room clumsily, bumping into walls. Zyla giggled so hard she nearly fell over. "It flies like a bird with a broken wing," she cried. Ethan laughed. "Hey, don't insult my masterpiece. I'll have you know I gave it personality." Zyla ran forward, holding up her picture. "Look, I drew us." Ethan took the paper carefully. On it were 3 figures: a tall alien mother with gentle wings, a small child holding a toy, and a human with messy hair and a wide smile. At the bottom, Zyla had written in big shaky letters, "Family of Friends." Lyra felt her chest tighten as she watched Ethan stare at the drawing. His smile softened, and his voice grew quieter. "That's the best picture I've ever seen." From that day on, visits to Ethan's workshop became a routine. Sometimes they brought food. Sometimes Ethan showed Zyla little gadgets. Sometimes they simply talked. Each visit added another thread to the bond between them, but not everyone approved. One evening, as Lyra walked home from the workshop, a neighbor stopped her. "You spend much time with that human," the neighbor said, voice low with disapproval. Be careful. Their kind does not belong here. Lyra's wings tensed. He is kind. He helped us. Kindness today may be trouble tomorrow, the neighbor muttered before walking away. The words stung, but Lyra refused to let them change her heart. She had seen Ethan's actions. She knew his worth. 1 week later, the factory faced another challenge. An important delivery of parts was delayed, and the owner threatened to cut hours. Fear spread among the workers. But this time, instead of despair, Lyra spoke up. We cannot only wait for others to save us. We must act together. Her co-workers looked at her with surprise. The quiet alien mother who once stayed silent now spoke with strength. And when she asked Ethan for help organizing transport, he agreed without hesitation. He fixed old cargo drones, gathered maps, and even drove one of the heavy loaders himself. With teamwork, the workers managed to complete the shipment. For the first time, they saw not just a human, but a partner. Their cheers that day were not only for success, but for the unity that had grown between them. That night, Lyra stood outside the workshop as Zyla played nearby. She looked at Ethan, who leaned against the doorframe, wiping grease from his hands. You have changed more than machines, she said softly. You changed lives. Ethan shrugged with his usual grin. Hey, I just like fixing things, whether it's toys, engines, or maybe hearts. Lyra laughed quietly. It was rare for her to laugh so freely, but around him it felt natural. Weeks turned into months. The bond between Lyra, her daughter, and Ethan only grew. They were not bound by blood or species, but by trust, kindness, and shared struggles. One evening, Zyla asked the question both adults had silently wondered. Mama, can Ethan be part of our family? The room fell silent. Lyra looked at her daughter's innocent face, then at Ethan. His eyes softened, but he did not speak. Lyra knelt beside Zyla. Family is not only about who is born together. Family is about who stands with you, who cares for you, who brings light when the world feels dark. She looked at Ethan again, her voice warm. And yes, he is part of our family. Zyla clapped with joy, running to hug Ethan. For a moment, Ethan froze. Then he gently wrapped his arms around her, smiling in a way Lyra had never seen before. Soft, grateful, almost emotional. The toy that had started it all still sat on Zyla's bed each night, blinking its golden eyes and humming softly. But now it was more than a toy. It was a symbol, a reminder of the day a single alien mother's tears had been answered not with pity, but with kindness. A reminder that even in a vast city of strangers, bridges could be built. And so, in the heart of Neo Celestia, among steel towers and glowing streets, an unlikely family was born, a devoted mother, a bright child, and a human mechanic with grease-stained hands and a stubborn smile. Together, they proved a truth that echoed louder than any machine. Humanity's greatest strength was not in weapons or power, but in the simple courage to care.